Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek Online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey there, J-Man.
Hi there, Chris.
Hey, 85 of these bad boys, dude.
I know.
What is up?
Well, apparently 85 episodes.
We have an epic episode for you guys today. So coming up, we've got some news, and definitely out of the gate, we're going to do some commentary on Perfect World buying Cryptic.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of the biggest stories.
How could we not talk about that?
Yeah, totally, dude. And then also later on, some commentary on the new Jupiter uniforms. I talked the J-Man in here into equipping not only myself with the Jupiter uniform,
whole boffs.
my whole boff crew.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a good design eye. So
No, it was terrible. I'm glad I did this for him.
It was awful. After the tweet leaks, though, sort of a special edition of Tactical View, we're going to show you our tips and tricks of getting through the Special Task Force, the Infected.
Yep.
Last week, we asked you to email in your tips and questions, and then earlier this week, we got on the live stream, we got our groups together, and we went through the Infected Special Task Force. We'll tell you all about it.
We crushed it.
What worked, what didn't work, what worked amazing, why I might have died. We'll talk about that. But that'll be later in Tactical View. But first, J-Man, let's talk about Perfect World.
All right, well, if you haven't heard already, what rock are you living under? They penned a deal. Perfect World Entertainment penned a deal to purchase Cryptic Studios off of Atari for $35 million.
Euros.
Euros, sorry.
So that's almost like 50 million.
Yeah, it's right around that
in the
neighborhood.
U.S. So the two key elements there is $50 million is a pretty good chunk of change, but also not yet officially done.
No, that's actually why we aren't able to get any official commentary from anyone. I've tried to get somebody at Cryptic to come on and tell us more details about what this means for the future and everything.
Publicly traded company A is buying publicly traded company B, and
so
therefore
they can't talk about it.
Stupid
publicly.
NDAs exist. It's
Right.
a business thing.
It's basically like an insider trading prevention sort of thing.
Sure. Now, Perfect World, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a Chinese-based company who is...
But publicly traded here in the U.S. on the NASDAQ.
Yeah, they have a U.S. presence, and they have about, I guess, I don't know, I'm not really familiar with their titles, but I guess about 5 semi-popular MMOs. And in fact, if you read some of the Chinese gaming news headlines, Perfect World is considered part of the top 5 great gaming companies in China. Perfect World is one of these examples that if you had the ability to see all corners of the gaming market around the world at once, you'd almost see why they're a great fit to buy Cryptic. They're almost... They share a lot of the same, what I would guess, corporate philosophies. One of the things Perfect World is known for is their 5 MMOs all share the same, at least my understanding is, the same technology engine backend.
Yeah, that's called the Angelica engine.
And they consider it to be one of their most advantageous corporate assets. I believe Cryptic also considers the Cryptic engine to be that. In fact, if you look at the press release, the joint press release from Perfect World and Atari about the purchase, one of the last paragraphs specifically talks about the valuable Cryptic MMO engine.
And the Foundry.
Right,
and
yeah, which is now becoming part of their engine. So I think you have Perfect World who says, look, there's a Western company who has successful titles that people are passionately following, and they have this same basic core design philosophy that we share. There's a lot of things that otherwise you would be worried could be very culture clashing that otherwise are just going to sync right up.
But no, yeah, these two companies seem to have a lot of synergy with each other. I
was trying not to use the word synergy.
Well, but come on, it's a corporate merger. We might as well use the corporate speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're leveraging that synergy.
Well done, sir. Very nice. Yeah. So
other R&D and technology. They mention it multiple times in the press release, and it really sounds like that is the angle that has convinced Perfect World to go through with this.
It does seem like that's the angle, and the response has been a lot all over the map from the community. What was your immediate response?
I'm going to get a little ranty here. I'm really disappointed with the STOked community because the number one response I'm seeing all over the place is a bunch of either thinly veiled or not veiled at all anti-Chinese racism.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to go into it too much, but you guys you broke my heart.
Wow,
you're better than
now.
That,
are you
people.
Are you saying it's racism because they're making assumptions of what they're going to do to the gameplay, or are you saying it's racism because they're actually saying things that are racist?
There was some of both, but there was a lot of disappointing. Just like I don't want the Chinese to own our American companies. You know,
chat room is agreeing with you
Those
quite a bit. The chat room says that they say you're right on. They think you've nailed it. Now, J-Man, I personally would say that the kind of racism that I've picked up on has been more about assumptions in what they're going to do with the game, or how a lot of Eastern games that are online are generally built.
Well, It's true that Eastern games have a certain expected thing.
I think that's where some of it's coming
they're
from.
played different than Western games.
The Final Fantasy game that just came out recently, kind of when I watched you play through that, I thought, boy, that to me does seem like it has a very Eastern design theme to it.
Mm-hmm. And yet at the same time, a lot of the gameplay elements of that were more Westernized.
Right.
Some of the stereotypical parts of an Eastern MMO are the cash shop with a more pay-to-win atmosphere where you can spend real-life money to get a leg up.
That's where I heard a lot of complaints and comments coming from, oh, now that this happened, they're going to nickel and dime us to death.
I don't think that that's anything worth fearing for two reasons. First of all, that's an Eastern ideal. It's something that goes over well in the Eastern markets that people buy into, but they don't buy into that here in the Western markets.
Well, we're getting closer and more comfortable to it, but I think the assumption that any direction change for the game that would be immediate and hard shows a fundamental lack of understanding of how business works.
I think so too.
The whole reason a company would drop $50 million on another company is to purchase everything about them. That includes their community, that includes their culture, that includes their technology, that includes the people that they sell products to. The whole idea there is they want to capture the market that this Western company has been able to open up, and successfully, we might point out. Champions Online, Star Trek Online are doing very well, and we've just started to see some great screenshots for Neverwinter Nights, and I suspect the week this episode comes out, we're going to see a lot more for the new Neverwinter Nights game.
Yep.
These are, the Neverwinter Nights game is getting hotly anticipated.
Oh, and just a sidebar on that note, too. I mean, the timing on this is awesome because a lot of people were worried about what's going to happen in Neverwinter. Yeah. All of a sudden, we get new articles.
It ends the speculation during E3, so people just focus on the actual game.
Right.
But I think you have to understand that Perfect World is aware of all this, and that's why they make the purchase, because they know that if they directly try to enter the market, they might come at it from an angle that isn't as very appealing to the customer base. That's the whole reason you do this. So the concept that that's just going to happen like that just shows that you're not really thinking it through. You're just kind of being possibly racist.
Right.
Not necessarily. That's not the case for all of them. And you may find that in a few years, the game does slowly drift towards other certain directions. There's been specific mentions in the press release about free-to-play.
Yeah.
Which has sort of reignited free-to-play rumors in the community.
Well, to be honest, and I might get a little flamed for this, but I honestly see STO eventually going to a free-to-play model. But prior to this purchase, I didn't think it was probably going to happen for years.
Yeah,
now that Perfect World is going to be acquiring the game, I can see that timetable moving up to possibly even within the next 6 months or so. And I know that that's going to rub some people wrong, but...
Well, like we got in the chat room, the first reaction is, well, I'm a lifetimer, I just got screwed. Which, it's funny because when Champions Online came out free-to-play, that's actually when I bought my lifetime subscription, because
there's still significant benefits.
They structure it in such a way to get you to pay money. Right. That's their incentive, so they make it worth having been a subscriber or a lifetime.
Really, calling most of these games, these Western MMOs that have gone free-to-play, calling them free-to-play is a total misnomer. It's more of an optional subscription, unlimited demo.
Yeah. Extended demo, unlocked demo, And so that's kind of been the whole sphere of responses. Some concern about changes to the game. A lot of it seems to be misunderstandings. And Cryptic sitting back from it, looking at it and going, I wish we could tell people it's going to be this. In a lot of cases, they probably don't know. And in all cases, they can't say.
I would like to kind of just wrap this up with one more point. Perfect World Entertainment acquired Runic Games in 2009, which are the makers of Torchlight.
Oh, okay.
And the people working on Torchlight 2, which is going to be an MMO.
Yeah.
They haven't touched it at all. Perfect World is not meddled. Runic is still 100% in control of their game. They're still 100% control in all the development ideas around Torchlight 2 and everything. They're just letting it go. Because, just like you said earlier, Perfect World Entertainment seems like a smart company that just wants to increase their presence. They don't necessarily want to take things and assimilate them.
The chat room right now is speculating on if we'll see STO hit China now.
I think so.
Now, imagine the... wow, the user base could blow up at that point.
Although I don't think that the Star Trek IP is very big in China at all, because of they have had for a long time censorship on the type of media that was allowed over there. I don't think Star Trek aired over there.
Yeah, okay, that could be. I don't know, but even still,
but Perfect World also has a big presence in Russia and some other Russian-speaking countries.
Yeah.
So outside of China, maybe more players on board with STO.
Now, any other thoughts before we wrap up on the Perfect World?
No, let's move on to some happier news.
Yeah.
That was a little heavy.
Yeah, that was a little
I think
heavy.
it's going to be a good thing in the long run, though.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I do, too. Why don't we end it with that? Yeah. I actually, my initial reaction is this is the best case scenario. What I was honestly really worried about is if they win at it on their own.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't want them to be successful. It's just I just have not seen history show me that that's going to work out.
Right.
History's
At least not
proved
over
that.
the long term.
Yeah, yeah, and with the parent company over you, with the bigger pocketbooks, you can take a little bit more risk that sometimes will bring in, a little more innovation, a little higher gain. So
Right.
we'll see what happens. All right.
Yep.
There's the wrap up on that. Let's talk about the new Jupiter uniform.
He's finally hit the C-store, and for a good price, too. I mean, if
I
you
didn't
think
even
about
notice.
it, it's a bundle of 5 different uniforms.
I hit my 500-day vet, so
And you just got 'em?
I got them. I didn't even notice that.
They're only 280 points.
Okay,
And I
so
don't remember the math off it, but that's
like
like
$1.99
under
or something?
$5.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good price for, I mean, it's less than $1 per uniform. There's 5 different options in there. Some of them are a little over busy.
Yeah, you're right. But overall, they look great, and
do.
I love the metal texture.
Yeah.
Love the metal texture. I think it's finally been the uniform that I was like, okay, I got to get this on all of my officers.
This is one of the first C-store items that have come out there that I would wholeheartedly recommend the purchase of. They look great. They're really classy.
And they feel like a nice evolution of the Star Trek uniform for this time period. Because, come on, let's be honest, some of those uniforms, they didn't even make it through 7 years of a TV show. They shouldn't be in 2409.
Right.
So the fact that these are now uniforms that I think deserve to be Star Trek uniforms that I would love to see a flash forward in some Star Trek hypothetical episode where I could totally see these uniforms being used.
I do have one slight poo-poo on this, and that's just kind of, poor Klingons. They got nothing.
They're getting
The cape for the veterans
they're
and the
getting
shoulder.
the cape and the triple shoulder pads, though.
Yeah, but that's only for veterans. I don't know if those are going to be on the C-store.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, J-Man. Let's move on to tweet leaks.
Okay.
You like that?
Yeah.
That was much more shorter than the last one.
I could picture that having like a backup choir doing it with you, like.
All right. So the first tweet leak that came out is a new badge.
Yeah, this is for Earthlings. I guess if you're not really an official part of Starfleet, and
I'm
you
an
want
Earthling and I'm proud of it.
badge.
I had worked into my character's bio that he retired from Starfleet and joined the Daystrom Institute. Now, in my bio, I worked him back in the Starfleet to come back, but I'd love to keep him as like a mercenary contractor captain for hire.
I actually have an alt that have made him and his whole. I like their story is that they're privateers hired by
I love
Starfleet
that.
as contractors.
And so you could take the mercenary outfit and put the Earthling badge on it, and that would look like some good stuff, I think. So, and that's just, of course, that's all in my head, so I haven't done it, but it seems like it'd be fun. The next tweet leak shows us some more possible improvements for ground combat.
Yeah, well, it was just basically noted that in addition to the actual changes to ground weapons, they're also making some changes to the turrets, including, it looks like some slight graphical upgrades to the turrets themselves.
A lot of stuff's getting touched, that's for
But
sure.
also the powers that they use, including the one that's noted in this shot as a Gatling turret.
Oh.
So a new power for your engineering turrets, if you're into that.
Now, here's a little KDF love for you. qo'nos is getting the courtyard is getting spruced up. Well, there's going to be a courtyard A, but it's getting spruced up with like little amenities and things.
It looks awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like someplace you would actually go and live. I mean, the set dressing is just incredible.
The
And
ambiance.
They're finally getting to the
good.
point, I think, with the KDF where they're starting to accept the fact that it's a melding pot of the Orions, the Nausicaans,
Yes.
everything. Everybody is part of the KDF
Great way
now.
to put that.
And some of those graphical elements and cultural elements from outside the Klingons.
What would happen
are
to the
starting make
KDF
their-
if they went through 30 years of hardcore expansion?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you get is this.
Yeah.
Now, the last tweet leak, though, is my favorite. And this also ties in with the ground combat improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell them what it is, J-Man.
Exocomps.
Yes! Exocomps are adorable. I love exocomps. Now, you guys probably remember that Star Trek The Next Generation episode where Data discovers that A, there's things called exocomps, and B, that they are sentient.
Or at least semi-sentient.
Yeah, yeah. And
On the road to intelligence.
in fact, Data even puts Captain Picard's life in risk trying to protect the sentience of the exocomps. Now, apparently, we've wiped that out of them. No, just kidding. Maybe
and
they
we have enslaved their race.
Hey, for all we know, they have, at this point they've enlisted. Maybe they
Oh, that's
enlisted.
true.
Yeah, and so now you know, like the automated turret you have on ground combat. I think it's that little
the
floating
drone.
disc thing, the
Yeah.
drone. Yeah, this is gonna be replaced with an exocomp.
Which is adorable.
Yes,
You know, in one of the pictures we also, from the previous one, the one with the turret, there's a little shot in the
Yeah,
corner
just
that
a
might have been
corner
a
of it.
tease of the exocomp. And if you zoom in on that, you can see that they painted teeth on the side of it.
Yeah.
Like little rawr.
also, it looks like that attachment might be the way the exocomp works is that's a little replicator area built on, and you could just replace the front with different tools theoretically.
You know, honestly, I would love to see just the exocomps replace turrets entirely. I think that stationary objects in this day and age are kind of dumb. They should just make the exocomps be your turrets and be able to fly around and follow you.
The thing about the turrets being set is you can set them up like we did in the STF. You set them up in a certain area and then you draw the guys towards you.
Well, you can still do that with exocomps.
As long as you could nail them to a position like you can with your boss.
Sure. They'd have to be real pets and not just...
Yeah. One thing I noticed, though, on the shot of the exocomps, now, Dan, over the history of the show, we've had to have a few moments on the show where we had to address you directly. Now, Dan, you know the J-Man and I love the tweet leaks.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have a whole segment of it.
I do a stupid thing for it every time. That's how much we love them. But the one thing we noticed, Dan, and I know you know better than this, you took a picture of email.
And in the past, it's just been a picture of a picture.
Yeah.
I can almost understand that.
You took a picture of an email that has pictures in it.
Yeah. This time you didn't even bother opening the attachments.
You could just... the Twitter picture service lets you send email to it. So you could forward that email.
And then the pictures upload to the internet directly.
I'm just saying. Then we could show high-res versions of the picture. I'm just saying.
I think he's toying with us.
I think so too. I think it's totally on purpose. And I go back to, hey, I'll take it over nothing, but I wouldn't mind a little more. I'm just saying.
You can put a little bit of effort into this.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, come on. We go to the trouble of showing it.
Right.
Now, are you ready for Tactical View?
I am ready.
All right, J-Man, let's go find out what happened on our run through Infected. And welcome to Tactical View. Now, we've played the Infected before, but we've actually never done it for the show.
That's right.
And so we want to take this moment to do it. One, for a couple of reasons, is the STFs are probably going to start changing.
Especially with the ground combat modifications coming soon.
Plus, we've just seen a tweet from Gozer, who works on the STF, saying at least the space combat changes at the battle we're going to cover are going to be changing. And
I'll cover those as we get into that. But
so some of the things we talk about might be changing, but we're going to try to give you tips that will work regardless.
Yeah.
And to start with that, the most important part is start with a good team.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
These are meant for team play.
They are, and they're not easy. Infected is the easiest of them, and they're only going to get harder from here on out. So if you're brand new to the STFs, get some friends and fleet mates that are familiar with them to lead you through. There's plenty of people out there that are experts at these by now.
And follow the leader. If the leader tells you to stand somewhere, you stand there. If they tell you to equip a certain gun, because equipment and all those things play a little more of an important role in STFs, because you got to think about the Borg as an enemy and what's the most effective weapon against them. Like, I'll tell you, I honestly, before we ran this run of the Infected, I had no idea that a lot of people recommend using that CRM to whatever it is.
200, the green freeze gun.
Makes total sense. Great weapon. Really improved my... I paired with the CRM, which that shot is almost guaranteed to slow them down. Plus, it's almost guaranteed to expose them.
Now, I will point out that if you're with a group that has very high DPS, don't bother using your secondary, except maybe as an opening shot.
Yeah, it takes
too long to warm up.
It's like a 10-second warm-up.
And usually your target will be dead by the time it goes off.
I went CRM to slow them down, and then a sword.
Yeah.
And I found that combo really worked really well for me.
And let's get into that when we get to the ground combat. I want to walk us through the entire mission, kind of a step-by-step sort of thing. But one more thing before we get into that, on the subject of following the leader, voice chat is extremely highly recommended for this.
Oh my god.
This will become less of an issue once Vivox becomes a part of the client itself.
We relied on TeamSpeak for this.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it, because in order to get accurate up to the second instructions from your team leader, you need to be able to hear them.
I want to mention that we did this live, this whole gameplay event over at jblive.tv at 7 p.m. on Thursdays, and we're going to do the next 2 Thursdays, so the Thursday that this came out. And one of the things we did was we piped our TeamSpeak chatter into the live stream. So if you're listening, you could tune in and hear how, and I'm not...
You could hear our team leaders.
And they were a good team.
Yeah.
So you could hear how a really well-organized team is working, instructing each other, and issuing commands during an STF, because we broadcast that, for better or worse, that TeamSpeak on the live stream. So be sure to tune in and catch that if you really want to see the mechanics.
This coming week will be the Cure, and the week following that will be the Kittimer Accord.
So right now we're going to go through and give you some of the best kind of tips we could take away, but if you want the serious detail, probably best to tune in live.
Yep.
All right, J-Man, walk us through it.
Well, the first step of the Infected is the space battle. Now, when you first zone in, there's actually 2 groups of Borg, one off to your left slightly and one off to your right slightly.
And at least at the time of recording, one of the first things people will tell you is minimize your prompts, don't click continue.
Let the team leader lead the mission. Every time somebody clicks continue, the next step of the mission will begin. So allow your team leader or whoever's designated to do so be the sole person responsible for advancing those prompts.
Yeah.
That way everybody's on board, you can get in the right locations
and you
ahead of
can
time.
gate some of the combat a little bit with that.
So the first tip I'll tell you about that space battle is head off to one side or the other and take on one group at a time. If you advance directly, you'll get both teams. That'll hurt. You can survive, but it'll hurt.
Yeah.
So head off to one side or the other. After those two teams are cleared, that's when it's time to start taking on the big gate.
Yeah.
Now, that gate will start spewing out Borg as soon as you advance the mission. A standard practice at this point has been to advance behind that gate.
And you are able to advance because you don't continue the dialogue.
Exactly. If you don't click the continue prompts and just minimize it out of the way, you can get up there before... Clicking continue is what activates the Borg to begin spawning.
And, that's exactly what my team did. In fact, we even positioned and stacked our ships based on the type of weapons that we'll be using. Like, we grouped our beam boats together so that way... And I even equipped my ship as a beam boat for this mission. That way I could deliver as much damage through phasers constantly.
That's a good point that probably is good to mention right now is the key component of succeeding in this STF, at least in Infected, we'll see how the Cure and Kittimer Accord work out, is high damage output. 100% of the time. You will succeed if you kill the enemy before they kill you.
That's how it works. That's the basic math of it.
So if you're spec'd for beam boats, and that's actually a good point because a tactical console that increases your beam damage will affect all of your weapons, which on you had 8 beams on your boat.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of an exponential increase. A fairly good tactic to get your damage through the roof.
I was floored at the amount of damage I delivered without firing a single torpedo. One last thing that was I did leave one spot open for the new Harping torpedo, and I don't know if this will change, but what I noticed through my limited testing was no matter what, I respect for this too, no matter what skill points I put into my Harping, to my torpedoes, it did not affect the Harping. It seems to be skillless.
Which is good or bad. Good because as a beam boat, you don't have to sacrifice any skill points into your torpedoes.
Great. To be honest with you, dude, the Harping torpedo delivered some great damage. I got some 5600s plus secondary damage, and I'm still able to devote all of my skill points to my phasers. Yeah. I loved it for a beam boat.
It's a good choice, I think.
I think the key thing that we did there was we had a couple of beam boats. We had a couple of guys with what was the ability that everybody said you got to have that I didn't have? I keep forgetting.
Hazard emitters.
Hazard emitters. We made sure we had people in team with
hazard emitters. Is a must for this. Not only does it cure the shield drain buff that the Borg cubes will shoot on you, but it also, if you get hit with one of their plasma torpedoes and you catch on fire, it'll cure that. Also, it's a hull heal, and a pretty significant one if you skill into it.
So it's a lot of it's almost the perfect answer to a lot of the common issues when fighting Borg ships. So the space battle continues. You got to beat these guys up. You eventually lead. Do you want to cover any tips for for destroying the gateway?
Focus 100% of your power. Make sure that everybody has fired off all of their buffs right before hitting the continue, so that your DPS is absolute maximum. It is possible, with the right setup and the right equipment and the right DPS, to destroy that gate on the first time the shields drop.
Yep.
Otherwise, you have to fight through either 3 or 4 different waves, which is what my team had to do.
So focus on that center point of the gateway and destroy the gateway. Otherwise, you're just going to have more guys.
Now, if you want to, you can take down the transmitters that are around the thing. That'll make the shields drop on the gate itself, but that makes the gate drop lesser loot.
Yeah. And if you wait to destroy those, you get more epic loot. So.
Exactly. When you take out the gate, it'll drop better loot if you didn't destroy any transmitters. But this is the big change that's coming that Gozer is implementing. Those transmitters are going to start healing the center gate in addition to putting that shield up.
Gozer!
So it's going to get even more difficult to take out that gate.
Can we have everyone get epic loot? Because, the way it is now, you roll for it, and whoever wins gets it. If I'm going to put that much effort into it, I want the epic loot.
Well, and we got some sort of cannon, and we didn't have a single escort on our team.
I think somebody on our team walked away with something pretty good.
Oh, one more quick note on space combat. Those Borg cubes blow up really big. And on the last wave, there's a tactical cube. So if you have to wait till that point...
Keep your evasive maneuver handy.
2 things. Yeah, keep your evasive maneuvers handy so you can get away from that tactical cube when it blows up. Also, pull that cube away from the transmitters. Otherwise, its explosion might take them out.
Yep, that is a great point.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pull them away. Boy, I'm glad you mentioned that. All right, now move on to ground.
Let's beam down.
All right, so you beam down, and of course, at this point, the first thing you should do, fire off your Borg Tribble. You do have your Borg Tribble with you, right?
You better.
And make sure you got your weapons. Make sure you're ready to go. Yeah. Don't run into combat without that.
Yeah, make sure your shields are equipped.
And do you want maybe this would be a good point, a good moment. One of the things our team made sure we focused on was each person had the correct kit. I went and got a Mark 11 physician's kit for this. I wanted to be the healer, so I knew my role was going to be
medic kit.
Right. Yeah. Stand back, heal.
Right.
And then I'll provide secondary support with the CRM 200 and things like that. Was that kind of your approach?
Actually, no.
No, tell me
It's
about it.
recommended for science officers if you're going to run these, learn to heal, because then you will always have a spot on the team and you'll always be worthwhile. I chose to take a different approach for two reasons. One
Not
is
to be
because
worthwhile?
he was healing.
Oh.
And two is because I really love being a geophysicist. I love that kit. The roots are extremely handy.
Did the roots work well with the board?
Yes.
Aha!
And they have a much larger radius than I thought. So as those zombies start marching towards you, you can root them in place and kill them from a distance. It was really great. Also, the thermal rift, if you put that up somewhere, the other Borg will actually walk around it and take extra time to
Same
go
with
around.
plasma fire. So if you have a plasma grenade, one of the things you can actually do if you have an onslaught of Borg coming at you is drop that sucker just to like, especially if it's like an enclosed space that they would have to pass through.
Right.
That's almost your good way to get them to back off and breathe a little bit. The first thing you got to do whenever you get into combat is look for one of those little generators. Because
the interlink node.
Until you destroy that interlink node, you're wasting your time.
If you kill a Borg while the interlink node is still up, he'll just go to sleep.
You've seen it before, probably. They just kind of...
After about 10 seconds, they'll wake up again and be at full health, and sometimes full shields as well.
And really, if you, depending on how you do it, if you have like a tactical guy and he has all the buffs he can fire off. Guys on our team were single-shotting that thing.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
If you do it right, you can...
Tactical kit that we would recommend, first of all, use a sniper rifle. The tactical guys on my team actually had 2 sniper rifles so they could cycle through their secondary attacks as quickly as possible.
Thinking.
And they were using either fire team or squad leader kits, which apparently have some of the best buffs for DPS.
Okay, good to know.
I'm not a tactical, so I'm just relaying their information.
Yeah.
But yeah, taking out an interlink node with a single shot from a distance before the Borg even notice you're there.
I think one of the first things I picked up on that we were doing as a group in ground combat that was unquestionably partially responsible for how well we did is they laid down health generators. So we would cluster health generators, and then we would draw the Borg to us. So that way, the entire time we were in combat, we were standing within these cluster generator domes. And then they would also use the ground cover shield to sort of isolate people out and things like that.
Yeah, the one that pushes them away.
Those two combos, so you're healing and you're getting that shield barrier.
So that was engineer fabrication and bunker kits that are able to do that. So those are pretty much an absolute must. If you're an engineer, you need to have one or the other.
And you can start to see how it's important. You got your science people because they're healing you. Now you've got your engineers because they can do that. Then you've got your tactical people.
So they can snipe the nodes.
Yeah.
It's a great way to balance out your teams like that. Now, that said, I've heard great success of teams of nothing but tacs or nothing but science officers running this. So it can be done. You just have to work on your tactics a little differently.
And the whole coordination's a lot of fun.
Now, one thing about the ground combat, the individual teams, there's a specific order in which you should be targeting these bad guys.
Okay.
And I'll tell you for it now, so pay close attention. That order is infected drones, medical drones, and then the tacticals, tactical heavies and elite tacticals.
And specifically to the tactical drones, what our group would do is after we had all the other drones down, we'd then, once it was just left to the tactical drones, you're just banging against their shields. And they can auto reheal their shields.
And
so if you have something like the sword or the batleth, go after them with that. After you've got all the other Borg down.
Yeah.
Go after them with your melee weapon, and you'll be surprised at how fast those tacticals drop.
It's awesome. It's a great tactic. Just so when you go into these battles, have your gun and have your pointy stick.
It is so rewarding to slash up a Borg with your sword after you've been fighting like 20 of them, and then you go after one. You just
especially for a little emaciated baby like my character is.
You're little dude up against those big tactical drones. And it's kind of a funny sight.
Side note about the proto drones. Frequently, these will despawn when you kill the people that summoned them.
Or spawn in behind you.
Right. So those are, after you've taken out everything except the tacticals, check for protos. You can kill them off. Now let's talk a little bit about the boss, the first boss. Which some people have just called a mini boss. He's really not all that tough. He's tough. But the real big sticking point that a lot of people have that could potentially cause them to fail this battle is that halfway through the battle he will stop, he'll become non-attackable, re-heal himself to full, and then summon in a swarm of Borg inside his room. There's a real easy way to counteract this, pull him out of the room.
Yep, that is the secret to beating this guy, is get him away from his minions, bring him down the hallway, and sort of set it up so that way he can come around the corner. Keep yourself around the corner so you don't accidentally pull in the whole group into the hallway.
Right.
So get him just around that corner and then kill him there and you got him.
Yeah, and then after you mopped him up, you can go in and clean up all the minions that he summoned. It's simple. It really makes it almost like, wow, I feel like I cheated.
It does, but at the same time, it's not like you're getting any less gameplay because the whole coordination and tactics of it are the absolutely most enjoyable part of that part of the gameplay.
Right.
So while it feels like you're maybe exploiting game mechanics, you're actually just being a really good tactician.
That's really just the best way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So after you do that, there's many more teams to kill, more pulls and interlink nodes and blah, blah, blah drones. Let's go ahead and skip to the end
Blah,
boss.
blah, drones. The end boss is cool. First of all, she can fly.
Yeah, I
And
wish I could.
The storyline is that it's like
Right, Peregrine? Rocket boots.
rocket boots. There you go. She apparently has rocket boots because she doesn't have anything else holding her up.
Nope.
This is like the commander, basically. You go up against she was running the show. They got there. They all got infected. Now she sort of became like the head drone.
Yeah.
Kind of.
People have called her the Borg Queen, but she ain't.
She's like a mini queen.
She's kind of like a Locutus, in a way.
Okay, I was just about to say I don't really understand how this fits into your standard Borg hierarchy, but I guess if you kind of consider it like you is. So she's an interesting challenge, but there's a few tricks you can actually follow to get past her pretty easily. It starts with getting in the room correctly.
Yeah, and the floor of the room is, of course, deadly plasma, which is bad if you fall into it.
It's the only way I died the entire time. I fell into the plasma.
He practically leaped into it.
No! It was after, it was almost, we were at the end battle, too. And it's like, I cannot believe the one time I die in running the infected is falling into the freaking plasma.
You weren't even in combat.
No.
Don't release if you fall in that plasma, because once the battles start, once you start engaging the Borg in that room, a shield will go up on the door, and if you respawn, you're outside.
Don't respawn, right.
Yeah, so wait for somebody to res you.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't fall in the plasma after you.
But really, a better tip for that portion of the floor is learn to jump.
Don't fall in the plasma.
Yeah, don't fall in the plasma.
Yeah. So we went in and kind of clockwork-wise, systematically cleaned out each corner of the room. And the way we did it is we had a couple of guys go over to each corner, and then we had a couple of guys in the middle of the room. And so they would be the backup shooters, and they would take out the next area before the guys had to go there. So
the drones on each of those platforms aren't really all that tough, and they don't have any interlink nodes you have to worry about or anything. So usually 2 people can handle clearing each platform ahead of the team that's doing the puzzle, the 3-person puzzle team.
Yeah.
I'll just cover the puzzle real quick. If any of you guys haven't done this yet, the way that it's done is there's 3 separate nodes, 3 separate people have to activate them at the same time, which drops a shield on the bigger node, and you insert the virus into that bigger node. So again, have your team leader and your team set up who is assigned to each of those jobs so that you know exactly when to do it, and do a countdown over voice chat if you need to. You got a lot of time as long as you coordinate it correctly and aren't fumbling around with trying to get the time right. And then make sure that you know which way to go. My team said clockwise. I went counterclockwise. But it still didn't kill too much time.
No, it worked out fine, right?
Yeah.
Hey, hell, I died in the plasma and it still worked out fine.
Right.
So then after you drop the virus, that's when the big baddie...
It'll unlock this node in the center that you have to blow up. Now, while you're doing that...
quick.
Okay, I'll skip to the boss, and then I'll come back to this. It'll be like time travel.
Yeah,
so,
I like it.
So stay on board here. The boss has an ability that's like a chain lightning attack. And if all of your group is out in the open... She'll shoot one of you, and it won't do a whole lot of damage, and then that attack will jump to the next person that it sees. Each time it jumps, it doubles in intensity. So the first person, it takes down about half your shield. The second person, it takes down their whole shields. Third person, et cetera, et cetera. Usually the 4th and 5th person that takes that blast is dead. So in order to defeat
remember,
the
respawning is not an option.
Exactly. So in order to defeat that boss, you have to either spread your entire team out so that the attack can't jump, which is really inconvenient.
Less effective.
Or break line of sight in some way. So the easiest way that we've found to break that line of sight is on the opposite wall from where you enter the room. There's a line of Borg alcoves.
Yeah, you'll see it right when you walk in.
Yeah, on the opposite wall. And if your entire team backs into those 4 alcoves, there's these little jutting out pieces on the sides that block line of sight.
Yeah.
So if you're in there and getting shot by her, the lightning won't jump.
Plus, she can't come up behind you either. So so you basically just sit back there and have a way at her.
So as soon as you've dropped the virus in there and the center thing becomes exposed and you start shooting that, get your butt into those alcoves so that when she comes out, you're ready to go without risking destroying your entire team.
And then you'll be surprised at how smooth it all goes.
Yeah.
I think both of us, this was the smoothest run we'd ever done.
To be honest, the only way that I'd killed this boss in the past was sheer dumb luck.
Oh, really?
Got bugged out and just the one person left alive was able to kill him. So this is a much better way than doing it than that.
I must have been spread out because I've never had the chain lightning attack, so that's good. And now that I know about this alco trick, I never will.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you, I guess, because it was probably thanks in a large part to a Class A act from the Jupiter Force.
Yeah.
Jupiter Force was rocking this one. I mean, just a great execution. And then,
in fact, if you're out there and you're a solo player and you need somebody to run these with, I'd recommend you pop on over to jupiterforce.org and see if anybody's willing to take you along on that.
Yeah, there's a general thread in there.
We've got a whole groups of people that run these dozens of times over the weekends. And yeah.
And then B, I want to say thank you to everybody who sent in your tips and your tricks. I had a lot of fun going through and looking at different spec builds based on a lot of emails you guys sent me. If you want to give us tips for future STFs, we're going to be doing those, like we mentioned, for the next few Thursdays over at jblive.tv. Email those in. STOked@jupiterbroadcasting.com.
I'm going to try to do something that I might not be able to succeed at doing, but I'm going to offer anyway. Since we haven't been able to cover all of the tips that were emailed to us, I'm going to take most of those and post them on the Jupiter Colony.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
so that even if we didn't cover the tips that you guys haven't, let's be honest, there's dozens of ways to succeed at these missions.
And it'd be fun to see what some other people have come up with.
Yeah, sure.
So Jupiter Colony. That's where those will be. And you can find that over on a link
in
on
the
Jupiter
STOked
Broadcasting.
subforum, yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, like we mentioned a couple of times, we do this live over jblive.tv. Now, the main show, this one you're watching right now, that's done on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Pacific.
It sure is.
That's the same time when they do the featured episodes. The features are released. Just go over to jblive.tv. And then we're doing the Special Task Forces on Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And you can find out all the details about that over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar.
And this week, just 2 days from when this will air, is The Cure.
Ooh. Yeah, we've got epics planned for next week's episode, so be sure to join us. Stoked comes out every Tuesday. And until then, have a great Stoked week. You like my Jupiter Broadcasting shirt or what?
No, it's ugly. I hate it.
Shut up, Jamie. I hate you. But if you haven't checked it out yet, there's jupiterbroadcasting.com/Bitcoin. And basically that runs a little JavaScript in the background.
Just put the link in the chat room.
Thank you, sir. That runs a little JavaScript in the background and helps us mine for Bitcoins. All right, here we go. It's
We've been recording this whole time.
Stoked 85 in 3, 2...